"We need your house for the weekend. Your sister's in-laws are visiting," Dad said, already holding my spare keys. "They're important people." I said sure and handed them over. What I didn't mention, I'd installed cameras 3 months ago. When they stole my late mother's jewelry and pawned it, I had every second on video. The detectives arrived during their Sunday brunch. My name's Eli. I'm 32. I fly commercial jets for a living, and somehow, despite spending half my life in the air, I'm the one everyone in my family expects to hold everything together on the ground. Oldest child, only son. The responsible one. I bought my little 2-bedroom house 5 years ago, about 40 minutes from where I grew up. It's close to the airport, quiet, nothing special. Beige walls, cheap fence, low-humming fridge. But it's mine. The only thing that's really mine. Well, technically, if you ask my dad, it's basically the family's place. He says that a lot. The day everything really started, I'd just come off a red-eye. I'd flown LAX to Boston, then dead-headed back. My brain felt like mush. I wanted a shower, a frozen pizza, and 12 hours of sleep. Instead, I walked into my living room and found my dad already there. He was sitting on my couch, shoes off, TV on some sports channel, like he'd wandered into a hotel lobby. My spare keys were on the coffee table in front of him, not where I'd left them. "Hey," I said, dropping my duffel by the door. "You know this isn't a Starbucks, right?" He barely glanced over. "You're a pilot, Eli. You're never here. Place was gonna collect dust either way." I kicked my shoes off and tried not to bite. Fighting with him when I was exhausted never ended well. "What's going on?" I asked instead, heading toward the kitchen. The sink was full of dishes I didn't recognize. A casserole dish I didn't own. 2 wine glasses. Great. He muted the TV. "We need your house for the weekend." I opened the fridge, staring at the half-eaten lasagna that also wasn't mine. "Do you?" "Yes." He said it like it was already decided. "Your sister's in-laws are flying in. Important people. We want to make a good impression." I shut the fridge slowly. Important how? Royal family. Mob bosses? He frowned. "Don't be difficult." I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. "Dad, Hannah has an apartment." "Too small," he said immediately. "No guest room, no yard. They're not going to sleep on a sofa bed. And the motel Miras's, you know." He wrinkled his nose. "We figured we'd host them here. It just makes sense. We. Not we asked, not we checked. Just we figured." "You figured," I corrected. He waved me off. "You're flying this weekend anyway." "Yeah, but that's not really the point." He reached for the keys on the table and picked them up, turning them in his hand like they already belonged to him. "Come on, Eli. Don't be selfish. Hannah's finally settling down. Mark's parents own 3 restaurants. They know people. This is important for her future." I felt that familiar little twist in my chest. That word. Selfish. It always showed up early. I didn't say no. I said, "I'm just finding out that my house got volunteered without anyone telling me." He sighed like I was a child. "We were going to call you, but I knew you'd overthink it. It's just a weekend. We'll keep it clean. They'll sleep in your room. We'll take the guest room. Hannah and Mark will be on the pullout. Easy." "We," I repeated. "As in, you're all staying here." "Of course." He said it like I was slow. "We want to be around them, build a relationship. You know how these things work." I stared at him. My bed. My shower. My tiny coffee station I actually liked. All about to become a free family Airbnb because my sister married important people. I rubbed my eyes with the heel of my hand. "And when were you planning on telling me this?" He checked his watch. "Now." I laughed once, no humor in it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a text from Hannah in the family group chat. "Hannah, just making sure the house will be stocked. They're used to certain standards, Eli." Then another, right under it. "Dad, don't stress him, pumpkin. He knows how important this is." I stared at the screen for a second too long. Of course they'd already decided. I could feel my jaw clenching. Part of me wanted to say no, just on principle. Another part remembered the years my dad had guilted me about forgetting where I came from every time I bought something nice with my own money. I slipped the phone back in my pocket. "You've already told them yes, haven't you?" I said quietly. Dad gave me that bright, fake innocent smile. "They land Friday morning." I looked at the keys in his hand. My spare set. The ones I thought were hidden in the little bowl by the door. He'd already taken them before I got home. I walked over, held out my hand. For a second, he hesitated, defensive flashing over his face. Then he dropped the keys into my palm. "So?" he said. "We're good?" I turned the metal over with my thumb. My reflection was warped and tiny in the front door camera screen across the room. The little black circle above the frame that nobody ever really noticed. "Yeah," I said finally. I tossed the keys back, harder than I needed to. "Sure." He caught them, grinning. "That's my boy." I didn't tell him I'd installed cameras 3 months ago, or that I already knew this weekend was going to be different. The thing about flying for a living is everybody assumes you're rich. They hear pilot and picture champagne, first-class seats, some glamorous life. They don't think about 3 a.m. alarms, sleeping in airport hotels that smell like industrial cleaner, or calculating how many hours of sleep you can physically get before you have to be back at the gate. My family definitely never thought about that part. To them, my job was a permanent money tree. Growing up, we weren't poor, but we weren't comfortable either. Dad worked construction. Mom did whatever she could around his schedule. Babysitting, cleaning, cashier jobs. I got my first job at 16 and never really stopped. When I got into flight school, I paid for most of it with loans and any extra hours I could grab. Mom cried when I got my license. Dad said, "Don't forget who helped you get there," even though help mainly meant not kicking me out. Then Mom got sick. Cancer, slow and ugly. I picked up extra flights, extra everything, paid hospital bills, medications, hired a night nurse when Dad couldn't deal with it. I don't resent that part. She was my mom. I'd have sold my organs if someone had asked. She died 3 years ago. That's where the jewelry comes in. Mom wasn't flashy, but she had a little collection she loved. A few gold pieces from her mother, a bracelet Dad got her on their 10th anniversary, and one set that stood out. A vintage diamond bracelet and matching earrings she inherited from her grandmother. I thought it was just sentimental until I had it appraised for insurance. "Conservative estimate," the guy said, "around 40 grand. That number stuck in my head. It wasn't about the cash. Not really. That jewelry was the last part of her that felt untouched. I put it in a small safe in my bedroom closet. Told Dad, told Hannah, made it clear. Don't touch this. It's Mom's. It stays with me." Dad had scoffed. "It's family jewelry, Eli. You can't just hoard it." "I'm not hoarding it. I'm protecting it." He'd rolled his eyes. "Fine, Captain Responsible." After Mom died, the favoritism that had always been there got louder. Hannah is 3 years younger than me. Pretty, funny, social, the kind of person who can walk into a room and leave with 5 new best friends and a free drink. She's also never paid a bill on time in her life. When she met Mark, it was like my parents found a second child to worship. Mark was ambitious. Mark had big plans. Mark came from a good family. His parents own a small chain of restaurants and a rental property or two, which in my dad's head automatically turned them into celebrities. Hannah and Mark got married 2 years ago. I paid for their honeymoon flights. Pilot discount. Dad said, like that made it free. Then there were the little things. Covering their rent just this once. Co-signing for Hannah's car because your credit score can handle it. Buying new kitchen appliances for my parents because your father's back can't take washing dishes by hand. Every time I hesitated, I heard some version of, "You know we'd do the same for you." You don't have kids, Eli. You have extra. Family takes care of family. Translation, you're the bank. The house became part of that. When I first bought it, Dad was actually proud. "My boy owns property," he told everyone who'd listen. Then the comments started. "It's closer to the city than our place. Nice yard. Perfect for gatherings. You shouldn't waste space. Let people use it." The first time they borrowed it, I was on a 4-day trip. I came back to empty beer bottles in the recycling bin. a lipstick stain on one of my pillowcases, and a text from Hannah. Hope you don't mind. We hosted a little barbecue. Everyone loved your place. I did mind. When I brought it up, Dad just shrugged. You're barely home. It's sad to see the house sitting there like that. At least it's getting use. Use, in their vocabulary, meant free venue. It kept happening. Birthdays, football games. Just a quick stopover that turned into a full weekend with my pantry raided. I tried to set rules. Ask me first. Don't go into my bedroom. Leave things where you found them. The more I asked, the more dramatic they got. Hannah, wow, sorry for existing. Dad, since when are you so uptight? Mom, back when she was around. You've always been so particular, Eli. The last straw before the cameras was my watch. Nothing fancy, just a pilot watch I'd bought myself when I upgraded to captain. It lived on my nightstand. One day it was gone. Hannah swore she hadn't seen it. Dad made a joke about gremlins. A month later, I spotted my watch on Mark's wrist in one of Hannah's Instagram stories. When I called her out, she said, "Oh, that. Mark just borrowed it for a thing. Don't be weird. We were going to give it back." They never did. I ordered cameras the next day. Nothing crazy. A doorbell cam, one in the living room, one pointed at the hallway leading to the bedrooms. All clearly visible, little blinking blue lights and everything. I didn't put any in bedrooms or bathrooms. I'm not a creep. I also didn't announce them with a big speech. I just installed them, typed in the Wi-Fi, set up cloud storage, notifications on my phone. The first time Dad noticed, he laughed. "What? You think someone's going to break in and steal your discount airline snacks?" "Sure, Dad, something like that." For a while, the cameras just showed me boring stuff. Dog walkers passing by. Deliveries. The occasional borrowed afternoon where Dad would come water my plants and somehow also drink 3 of my beers. Then little things started to go missing again. A bottle of whiskey I'd been saving vanished, a pair of cufflinks Mom had given me, some cash I'd left on the counter. I checked the footage, but whoever was taking stuff was either careful or lucky. I caught glimpses of people going in and out, but nothing clear. Still, it was enough to make my stomach tight whenever I saw a motion notification. By the time Dad told me, "We need your house for the weekend," the emotional trap was already set. I'd spent years paying for everything. I'd given up time, money, and sleep for them. They thanked me by treating my house like a free hotel. And now, the most valuable thing Mom left me was sitting in a safe in the closet they'd once called overkill. Dad thought the cameras were about burglars. He didn't realize they were there to catch him. The night before Hannah's in-laws arrived, the family group chat lit up again. "Hannah, don't forget fresh flowers, Eli. They're used to nice things." Dad, he knows. He's not stupid. "Hannah, also, can you move your pilot junk out of the main bedroom? I don't want them thinking we're messy. Pilot junk." She meant my flight bag. My manuals. The framed photo of Mom on my dresser. I typed out, "You can move in with them if they love you so much," then deleted it. Instead, I sent, "Eli, sheets are clean. Towels are in the linen closet. Don't touch my closet safe." I mean it. The typing bubble popped up, then disappeared. A minute later, "Dad, relax. No one wants your old socks." I stared at that message longer than I should have. My phone buzzed again an hour later. Camera notification. Someone at the front door. I opened the app and saw Dad letting himself in with my keys. He went straight to the hallway, glanced up at the camera, and smirked. Then he flipped it off. I watched the screen go black for a second before the feed came back. He'd just tested how much power he had. This weekend wasn't just about important people. It was about whether I was going to keep letting them use me. Spoiler, I had no idea how far they were willing to go. Not yet. Hannah and her entourage arrived Friday morning while I was halfway across the country. I watched the whole thing on my phone from a plastic chair in a crew lounge, lukewarm coffee in hand. Dad opened the door with this exaggerated flourish, like he owned the place. "There she is," he said as Hannah swept in, sunglasses on, 2 big suitcases rolling behind her. Mark followed, carrying a gift bag. His parents came last, stepping in like they were inspecting a rental they might buy. "Wow," Hannah said, looking around. "It's cozy." Translation: not good enough. Mark's mom, a thin woman with a permanent frown, sniffed. "Small, but acceptable. At least it's not a motel." My jaw tightened. Dad laughed too loudly. "LA's doing well for himself. Captain now. Big salary. House is just the start." "First officer," I muttered at the screen. Not that they cared about the difference. They spent the next half hour criticizing my furniture, my art, 2 cheap prints and a photo Mom liked, my random airport mugs. Hannah opened my fridge without asking. "Is this it?" she said. We told him we needed a nice spread. There was food. I'd done a big shop before my last trip. But apparently, Greek yogurt and sandwich stuff didn't scream important guests. Dad shrugged. "We'll send him a list. He can Instacart the rest." Like I was their personal assistant, not the guy paying the mortgage. I almost closed the app. I almost put the phone in my locker and walked away. Then, Saturday afternoon, the notification came through. Motion detected. Hallway camera. I'd just finished a leg and was sitting at the gate waiting for passengers to board. I opened the feed out of habit. At first, it was nothing special. Hannah walking down the hall in a robe, yelling at Mark about the wrong hair mousse. Dad coming out of my bedroom with his shirt half-buttoned. In-law voices in the background, laughing. Then Dad stopped, looked directly at the hallway camera, and stepped closer. He glanced over his shoulder, then reached up and tilted it slightly toward the ceiling. I sat up straighter. "Hey," I muttered under my breath. "What are you doing?" The view shifted, but not enough. I could still see the closet door, the edge of my bed. "Dad, what are you—" 3 seconds later, he came back with Mark. "Are you sure about this?" Mark whispered. Dad's voice was low, but the audio picked it up. "You want your car debt paid off or not? He'll never notice. He doesn't even live here." My heart started pounding. Hannah's voice floated in from somewhere off screen. "Just hurry up. They're picking us up at 6. Dad opened my closet. I watched the door swing wide, the dark inside making my stomach flip. I knew exactly where the safe was. Top shelf, tucked behind some old boxes." He reached up, felt around, and pulled it out like he'd done it 100 times. Mark whistled. "That's heavier than I thought." Dad set the safe on the floor. From my angle, I couldn't see the keypad, but I didn't need to. He'd watched me put in the combination once, years ago. I'd never changed it. 4, 3, something. Mark said, "I've got it." He punched in the code. The light went green. The door swung open. I stopped hearing the airport around me. Mark let out a low breath. "Wow." He reached in and pulled out the velvet box with Mom's diamond set. Hannah appeared in the doorway. Hair done, lipstick perfect. "Well?" Dad opened the box. Even through the grainy camera, the jewelry caught the hall light, the bracelet, the earrings, the pieces my mom had worn on every anniversary, every special occasion. "That's at least, what, 30, 40 grand?" Mark said. Dad closed the box quickly, glancing at the camera he'd tilted. "Keep your voice down." "Are we actually doing this?" Hannah asked. She sounded nervous, excited, like she was about to jump off a cliff she'd been staring at for years. "It's not like we're stealing from a stranger," Dad said. "It's family money. It belongs to all of us. We'll pawn it, pay off some things, maybe invest. When your brother finally settles down, we'll get it back. Or buy something nicer." My hand tightened around my phone. Family money. Mom's face flashed through my head. The way she used to twist that bracelet when she was anxious. The way she'd told me, half joking, "If things ever get really bad, you can always sell these. But only if you promise not to tell your father." I'd promised, and here he was, ripping them out of the safe like they were coupons. Hannah bit her lip. "What if he notices?" "He won't," Dad said. "He's always in the air. By the time he does, it'll be too late. And if he says anything, we'll tell him we had to." You know how dramatic he gets about money. They stuffed the box into Mark's backpack, along with a couple of other things I couldn't quite see. I screen recorded the whole thing on my phone, my hands shaking. Boarding started. People lined up at the gate. A kid cried somewhere to my left. The gate agent called my name to sign paperwork. I barely heard her. I watched my father walk out of camera view with my mother's jewelry in his hands. Something went very, very still inside me. I'd spent years swallowing things, letting comments slide, paying for repairs, replacing stolen items with a tight smile. This was different. This wasn't passive-aggressive texts or forgetting to ask before hosting a party. This was felony-level theft from his own son, from his dead wife. The next notification came an hour later, when we landed. Motion detected. Living room. They were all there, dressed for dinner. Hannah in a new dress I hadn't seen before. Mark's parents at the table, sipping wine. Dad laughing louder than everyone. On the coffee table was a stack of pawnshop cash envelopes. I didn't need to guess. I called the non-emergency police line before I even left the cockpit. "Hi," I said, my voice weirdly calm. "My name is Elijah Carter. I have live camera footage of my family stealing and pawning a large amount of jewelry from my home." The dispatcher went quiet for a second. "From your family?" The breaking point. Not a shout, not a dramatic speech, just a quiet decision to finally treat them the way they'd been treating me, like strangers who'd crossed a line. People always imagine cops showing up with sirens blaring. The detectives who came to my house that Sunday were quiet. I'd managed to swing a schedule change and deadhead back early. I landed mid-morning, drove straight from the airport to the precinct, and handed over my phone. They watched the recording from the hallway camera in a small fluorescent-lit room. Nobody said much until the video ended. The older detective, Martinez, leaned back in his chair. "You're okay with pressing charges?" I stared at the paused frame of my father holding the velvet box. "Yes." He looked at me for a long second. "You understand, this is going to blow up your family." I let out a breath that hurt on the way out. "It was already blown up. I'm just turning the light on." He nodded slowly. "All right, we made a plan. They'd go over while everyone was still there, recover what they could from the pawn shop, ask questions, start the case. If you want to be present, that's your call," Martinez said. They were all there, dressed for dinner. Hannah in a new dress I hadn't seen before. Mark's parents at the table, sipping wine. Dad laughing louder than everyone. On the coffee table was a stack of pawnshop cash envelopes. I didn't need to guess. I called the non-emergency police line before I even left the cockpit. "Hi," I said, my voice weirdly calm. "My name is Elijah Carter. I have live camera footage of my family stealing and pawning a large amount of jewelry from my home." The dispatcher went quiet for a second. "From your family?" The breaking point. Not a shout, not a dramatic speech, just a quiet decision to finally treat them the way they'd been treating me, like strangers who'd crossed a line. People always imagine cops showing up with sirens blaring. The detectives who came to my house that Sunday were quiet. I'd managed to swing a schedule change and deadhead back early. I landed mid-morning, drove straight from the airport to the precinct, and handed over my phone. They watched the recording from the hallway camera in a small fluorescent-lit room. Nobody said much until the video ended. The older detective, Martinez, leaned back in his chair. "You're okay with pressing charges?" I stared at the paused frame of my father holding the velvet box. "Yes." He looked at me for a long second. "You understand, this is going to blow up your family." I let out a breath that hurt on the way out. "It was already blown up. I'm just turning the light on." He nodded slowly. "All right, we made a plan. They'd go over while everyone was still there, recover what they could from the pawn shop, ask questions, start the case. If you want to be present, that's your call," Martinez said. "I do," I said immediately. He raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "Yeah. I want them to see me when they lie." An hour later, there were 2 unmarked cars parked down the street from my house. I watched from inside one of them as my dad set out plates for brunch through the living room window. Hannah was arranging a charcuterie board on my coffee table like it was her own. Mark's parents sat at my dining table, faces buried in their phones. It would have been funny if it wasn't my life. "Ready?" Martinez asked. I swallowed. "Yeah." We walked up to the door. Martinez knocked lightly. Dad opened it. still smiling from some joke he'd been telling. The smile dropped when he saw the badges. "Good morning, sir," Martinez said. "Detective Martinez. This is Detective Huang. We're here about a reported theft." Dad laughed too loud like he thought it was a prank. "Theft? No, you've got the wrong house. We're just having family over." Then he saw me behind them. His face changed, brushed off annoyance, hardened into something darker. "Eli," he said slowly, "what did you do?" Detective Huang spoke up. "Can we come in?" Dad hesitated, glancing over his shoulder. I could hear Hannah's voice from inside. "Dad? Who was that?" "It's fine," he called back. Stepping aside, "Come in." We walked into my living room. Everyone froze. Hannah was mid-pose, holding a bunch of grapes over the charcuterie board. Mark's mom clutched her phone. Mark's dad stood up halfway, looking confused. Mark had my mom's bracelet on his wrist. The actual diamond bracelet, not a copy. You could see the tiny chip near the clasp where she'd banged it once on a door frame. Detective Huang noticed too. "Sir, I'm going to need you to stay right where you are." Mark laughed nervously. "What? This? It's a family heirloom." "Exactly," I said. He shot me a look that was somewhere between panic and rage. Hannah found her voice first. "What is this?" she demanded, looking at me. "Why are the police here?" Martinez pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, then held it up. He'd copied the footage from my cloud account earlier. The hallway video played on loop. Dad opening the safe. Mark saying that's at least 30-40 grand. Hannah asking, "Are we actually doing this?" You could see their faces clearly. No blurry could be anyone nonsense. Hannah's in-laws stared at the video like they'd just been told the people sitting with them were aliens. Mark's mom whispered, "You stole from him?" Dad's face went red. "This is ridiculous. Eli, turn that off. We were just borrowing," I said. "I know. You were going to put it back after you paid off Mark's credit card and funded Hannah's next little project. Our next restaurant." Mark snapped. "It was an investment. You wouldn't understand." Detective Huang stepped in front of me slightly, like he was used to people trying to redirect their anger. "Mr. Carter, did you enter your son's safe without his permission and remove jewelry from it?" Dad's jaw clenched. "It's not just his. It's family property." "That's not what I asked." He looked around the room like someone was going to save him. Hannah, Mark, the in-laws, anybody. No one spoke. "Yeah," he said finally. "I opened it. But we didn't steal anything. We were just pawned it yesterday." I cut in. "You left the envelopes on the table." Martinez gestured to Mark's wrist. "And that bracelet?" "Fine," he muttered. "Here." Huang took it, bagged it in evidence tape. Dad rounded on me. "You think this makes you some kind of hero? Calling the cops on your own father?" I met his eyes. "I think it makes me someone who finally stopped letting you rob me." Hannah's voice cracked. "You're ruining everything. Do you have any idea how this looks?" I laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Oh, I have a pretty good idea." Hannah's mother-in-law stood up abruptly. "We had no idea about any of this," she said to the detectives, voice high. "We are respectable people. We would never—" "No one said you did it," Martinez said calmly. "But we'll need statements from everyone who was present." Dad kept talking over him, panic edging into his voice. "Eli, tell them you're not pressing charges. This is family business. We'll sort it out. You don't want your father in handcuffs, do you? Your sister's marriage on the rocks? You're going to destroy this family over some rocks and metal?" Mom's face flashed in my head again. The last thing she'd asked me before she went into hospice was, "Promise me you'll stop letting them take advantage of you." I'd said, "I'll try, Mom." I looked at Martinez. "I'm pressing charges." Dad stared at me like he didn't recognize me. "You ungrateful." Huang warned, "You wouldn't even have that jewelry without us." Dad spat. "I gave you everything. We sacrificed so much for you, and this is how you repay us?" I felt something in me finally snap into place, like a bone setting. "You paid the bare minimum until Mom got sick," I said quietly. "Then you let me carry everything while you complained. You've taken my money, my time, my house, and now the last thing Mom left me. I don't owe you anything." Hannah's eyes filled with tears. You're choosing things over your own family. No, I said. I'm choosing boundaries over thieves. Mark muttered something under his breath about overreacting pilot ego, but he didn't say it loud enough to matter. The detectives did what they had to do. They didn't slap cuffs on anyone right there. TV lies about that part. But they took statements. They photographed the safe. They bagged the bracelet. They had the pawn shop receipts already. When they finally left, Dad turned on me one last time. You'll regret this, he said. His voice was low and shaking. You'll be alone. No one's going to stand by you after this. Blood's blood. Eli, you don't turn blood into criminals. I looked around my living room at the half-eaten food, the wine rings on my coffee table, the shoes kicked off in my hallway, the suit jacket draped over the back of my chair, all in place like I was the guest, not the owner. I didn't turn you into anything, I said. You did that yourself. For the first time in my life, I watched my father look small. Not because of his height, because there was finally someone in the room he couldn't guilt into backing down. Me. He grabbed his coat, threw it over his shoulder, and stormed past me. No more freebies, he said on his way out. Don't come crawling back when you realize you need us. I almost laughed. I've been standing on my own for years, I said. You're just mad I finally shut the ATM down. The door slammed. The silence that followed felt strange, not peaceful yet, but clean. Like the moment right after a storm when everything's still dripping and broken but the air is finally clear. It's been 8 months. The case moved slower than I thought it would and faster than my family deserved. They tried a lot in that time. First came the guilt. Text from Dad. You can still fix this. Call the detective. Tell him you overreacted. Voice messages from Hannah, crying about how this is ruining our reputation and how Mark's parents don't look at us the same anymore. Cousins messaged me screenshots from the extended family chat, stories about how I'd always been cold, how success went to my head, how I'd set them up with cameras like some kind of trap. They left out the part where they stole. The pawn shop cooperated. They'd already sold the earrings, but the bracelet was recovered. The receipts matched the footage. Dad's signature was right there. In the end, the DA offered a deal: no jail time if they pleaded guilty to a lesser charge, paid restitution, and did community service. Dad wanted to fight it. Mark wanted to blame confusion. Hannah wanted me to magically make it disappear. I didn't budge. They took the deal. Somewhere in there, something shifted in the family tree. A couple of relatives reached out quietly. An aunt who admitted she'd always seen how they leaned on me. A cousin who said, if my dad did that to me, I'd have done worse. Hannah's in-laws never spoke to me directly, but I heard through the grapevine that they weren't thrilled about their son partnering with people who think pawning stolen jewelry is a financial strategy. Can't say I lost sleep over it. On my side, I changed things. I changed the locks. New keys. No extras, just in case. I installed a proper security system with a code only I know. I kept the cameras, but for the first time, I can go a whole day without checking them. I moved Mom's jewelry, what's left of it, to a safety deposit box at the bank. Visiting it feels weird, like visiting a museum exhibit about my own life. But it's safe now, away from anyone who thinks they're entitled to it. I also made 2 promises to myself. I will never co-sign or loan money to my father or my sister again. If they ask, the answer is no. Full stop. No explanations. Anyone who uses the word family as a crowbar to pry open my boundaries gets the door closed on them. It's not like the movies. There was no big dramatic reconciliation, no teary apology where Dad admitted he was wrong. The closest thing I got was a text from him after his court date. Guess you got what you wanted. Hope you're happy. I stared at it for a long time. I typed out, what I wanted was for you not to steal from me. Then I deleted it. Instead, I blocked his number. Hannah tried one last time a month ago. She showed up at my door without warning, eyes red like she'd been crying in the car. Can we talk? She asked. For a second, the old part of me wanted to step aside, invite her in, make coffee, smooth it over. Then I remembered her voice on that camera. Are we actually doing this? The way she'd called me selfish when I refused to drop the charges. I opened the door just enough to see her properly. "Say what you need to say," I said. "Here." She swallowed. "You destroyed Dad. He says he can't show his face anywhere. Mark's parents think we're criminals. Do you know how hard this has been on me?" There it was. Me. 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 "What do you want from me, Hannah?" I asked. "An apology," she shot back, "for making this public, for treating us like strangers, for choosing things over blood." I almost laughed in her face. "I'm not apologizing for protecting myself," I said. "I didn't make this public. You did, when you walked into a pawn shop with stolen jewelry and your real names." She flinched. "You're my brother," she said quietly. "You're supposed to have my back." I did. I said. "For 32 years. I paid bills. I bought tickets. I let you live in my house. Having your back apparently meant letting you empty my pockets forever. I'm done." Tears spilled over. "So that's it? You're just cutting us off? Until you can admit what you did and stop pretending I'm the problem?" "Yeah, that's it." She stared at me for a long time. "You're going to die alone," she whispered finally. It was meant to hurt. Maybe once it would have. Now, it just sounded tired. "I'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who see me as a walking wallet," I said. I closed the door gently, not slamming it. I waited for the pounding, the shouting. It never came. I watched through the peephole as she stood there for a moment, then walked back to her car. I slid down the door and sat on the floor. For the first time since Mom died, I felt something like peace. Not joy, not yet, but a quiet, steady sense that I'd finally done right by myself. Last weekend, I had the house to myself. No trips, no layovers. Just me, my cheap beige walls, my beat-up couch. I made coffee in my little kitchen, opened the back door, let the breeze in. A friend from work came over with her kids. They ran circles in the yard, laughing. We grilled burgers, watched a movie. At some point, one of the kids spilled juice on the rug. "Sorry," he mumbled. "It's okay," I said, and I meant it. Mess made by people who respect you feels different than mess made by people who think they own you. Before they left, my friend glanced around the living room. "It's a nice place," she said. "Feels calm." I smiled. Just a little. It didn't always. That night, I lay in my own bed, in my own room, in my own house that no one else had keys to. My phone buzzed. Motion detected. Front door. For a second, my stomach clenched on instinct. Then I opened the app and saw exactly what it was. Just the wind. A branch waving in front of the camera. Nothing more. I locked the screen and put the phone face down. You hear a lot of sayings as a pilot. Trust, but verify. Always know your exits. Secure your own oxygen mask before assisting others. Turns out, those aren't just for airplanes. I used to think cutting off family made you cold, harsh, ungrateful. Now I know better. It doesn't make you heartless to lock the door. It just means you finally learned who you're letting in.